Why do so many intelligent, hard-working people still fail in the modern world? Because they rely on goodness, honesty, and blind effort, when the world rewards strategy, perception, and ruthless control. Today, I reveal 10 Machiavellian rules for modern success, the dark code of power that separates the conquerors from the conquered. Men often believe the world rewards truth. They cling to honesty as if it were a weapon that could shield them from failure. Yet, history shows us otherwise. Kings, emperors, and modern rulers alike have risen not because they were more honest, but because they mastered the art of perception. They understood a harsh reality. Men judge more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see, but few can truly understand. Think carefully about this. When you walk into a room, no one knows your private struggles, your doubts, your fears. They only know what you allow them to see. A trembling man can still appear confident if he wears the mask of certainty. And a capable man can still appear weak if he lets the cracks of insecurity show. Success in this world is not built upon truth, it is built upon appearance. Consider how power is established. A leader may not be the wisest nor the strongest, but if he appears decisive, others will follow. His confidence becomes contagious, and his image of strength is more valuable than truth itself. In the modern world, this law is even more ruthless. Politicians rise through speeches and appearances, not through honest governance. Entrepreneurs gain investment not by what they have, but by what they can make others believe they will create. Even ordinary men and women succeed in their careers not by their raw skill alone, but by the perception of reliability, charisma, and authority that they craft around themselves. The tragedy is that most people misunderstand this law. They live as if truth alone will elevate them. They think their hard work, their honesty, and their inner goodness will be enough, but the world does not look into your heart. It looks only at the mask you wear. If you appear weak, you are weak. If you appear powerful, you are powerful. Reality itself bends to perception because men act upon what they believe, not what is true. Look around you. Have you ever wondered why incompetent men are often admired, while brilliant men remain ignored? Why the loudest voices gain attention, while the silent geniuses remain in the shadows? It is because perception controls recognition, and recognition controls opportunity. The truth of your ability is meaningless if no one perceives it. But the illusion of ability is often enough to open every door. Think of the lion. In the wild, its roar is not merely a sound, it is a symbol. The roar convinces other creatures of the lion's dominance, even before a fight takes place. The lion may not even be the strongest beast at that moment, but perception protects it. So too in the human world. Your roar, your projected image, your carefully crafted presence will often save you from challenges you might not even be ready to face. This is why men of power carefully design how they are seen. They choose their clothing, their words, their gestures, even their silence, with precision. Nothing is accidental. Every detail feeds into the perception they wish to create, for perception is not something you leave to chance. It is a weapon you forge, sharpen, and use against the blindness of the crowd. But here is the danger. If you neglect this rule, if you walk through the world as you truly are, unpolished and exposed, you will be crushed by those who have mastered illusion. Honesty without strategy makes you prey. Men will not reward your purity, they will exploit it. They will respect the liar who appears strong more than the honest man who appears weak. And in the game of power, respect is the currency from which all influence flows. Perception has the power to turn lies into truth. If you are seen as reliable, people will place their trust in you, even if you have failed many times before. If you are seen as dangerous, men will hesitate to cross you, even if you lack the will to strike. If you are seen as indispensable, they will hold on to you, even when you no longer provide real value. Such is the supremacy of perception. It molds reality itself, for people act according to what they believe, and in their actions, your fate is decided. When you master perception, you gain an invisible army. Men will spread your reputation for you. They will repeat your image until it becomes accepted as fact. They will defend your strength, even when they have never seen it. They will bow to your authority, even when it is only painted on the surface. This is the secret of rulers, both past and present. They govern less with armies and more with appearances. To live by truth alone is to live naked among wolves, but to master perception is to wear armor invisible to the eye, yet stronger than steel. In this way, you gain protection, influence, and the ability to bend reality itself to your will. In every man there is a battlefield he often fails to see. It is not fought with armies or steel, but with fire and water. The fire of anger, the water of fear, the smoke of vanity, the poison of envy. These emotions, when uncontrolled, govern him like a tyrant. He believes himself to be free, yet he is a slave. And the man who is enslaved by his emotions will always be conquered by the one who has mastered them. To rule others, you must first rule yourself. The man who allows anger to dictate his actions will destroy alliances, reveal his weakness, and strike before his sword is sharp. He becomes predictable, and predictability is death in strategy. Anger blinds, and the blind man stumbles into traps laid by his calmer enemy. History remembers countless rulers who lost their crowns not because they lacked armies, but because they lost control of their rage. The enemy did not need to fight them. Their emotions did the work of destruction. Fear is no less dangerous. The fearful man hesitates when he must act, doubts when he must decide, and flees when he must stand. Fear robs him of opportunities that never return. A fearful man can never command respect, for men smell fear as wolves smell blood. To the ambitious, his hesitation is an invitation. To his rivals, his weakness is a signal. And so, his kingdom, his career, his very life becomes prey for those with colder hearts and steadier hands. But anger and fear are not the only tyrants. Vanity, too, enslaves the unguarded. The vain man spends his life chasing applause, mistaking praise for power. He becomes a prisoner of other men's opinions, forever adjusting himself to please them. But the applause of the crowd is fickle. It turns to jeers as quickly as it rose to cheers. He who lives for approval dies with shame when it is withdrawn. Worse, he becomes easy to manipulate, for a flatterer can command him with a few well-placed words. Consider also envy, the green-eyed vulture that gnaws at the soul. The envious man despises the success of others, but instead of learning from them, he wastes his energy in resentment. His eyes are fixed on what another possesses, and thus he blinds himself to his own opportunities. He does not build, he only consumes himself with bitterness. And in this way, envy turns strength into weakness and ambition into rot. Now understand this, emotions themselves are not the enemy. They are forces, wild, untamed, and dangerous, but forces nonetheless. Just as fire can burn a house to ash or forge iron into a weapon, so too can emotions be destructive or useful, depending on who wields them. The difference between the ruler and the ruled lies in mastery. The weak man is driven by his emotions. The strong man drives his emotions to serve his purpose. Anger, when controlled, becomes fuel for action. It gives strength to the arm and speed to the decision. But it must never lead. It must be chained, directed, and unleashed only when the result is certain. Fear, when mastered, becomes caution. It sharpens the senses, warns of danger, and prevents recklessness. Vanity, when bent to your will, can inspire confidence and charisma, drawing men toward you. And envy, if transformed, can become ambition, the hunger that pushes you beyond complacency. This is why I say master emotion or be ruled by it. For the battlefield of power is not merely external, it is internal. The man who cannot govern himself cannot hope to govern others. And the world belongs not to those who feel deeply, but to those who can silence their feelings until the moment comes when they can be used as weapons. Imagine two men standing before a crowd. One is filled with rage, his voice trembling, his gestures uncontrolled. The other is calm, deliberate, his words sharp as daggers, but his face as still as stone. Which man will the crowd obey? Which man will command loyalty, fear, and respect? Always the one who rules himself. For men do not follow the storm. They follow the one who can command it. When you observe the great conquerors of history, you will see this truth. They were not heartless, but they were masters of their own hearts. They felt anger but did not let it consume them. They felt fear but did not let it paralyze them. They felt pride but did not drown in vanity. Their strength was not in being without emotion, but in bending emotion to serve their ambition. The same holds true in the modern world. The executive who controls his nerves in negotiation, the politician who smiles while hiding disdain, the individual who faces insult but answers with silence rather than rage. These are the ones who rise, for self-mastery is the foundation of mastery over others. In war, in politics, and in the struggles of ordinary life, men often believe that strength alone decides the outcome. They imagine that the largest army, the most resources, or the sharpest intellect will always prevail. Yet, history teaches a crueler truth. Many strong men have been destroyed, many brilliant minds forgotten, because they did not strike at the right moment. Timing is the invisible blade, unseen, silent, but decisive. To act too soon is as fatal as to act too late. Victory belongs to the man who knows when to move, when to wait, and when to strike. Patience is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality it is power disguised. The hunter does not chase the deer blindly. He waits until the prey steps into his trap. The general does not throw his soldiers into battle at the first sign of the enemy. He maneuvers, deceives, and delays until the enemy exposes a weakness. So too in the game of success, those who rush are destroyed by their haste, and those who hesitate are destroyed by their delay. The wise man measures time as carefully as the miser counts his gold. Observe the ambitious man who is eager to rise. He pushes forward without strategy, announcing his intentions before his foundation is built. His rivals, warned of his moves, block his path. His eagerness exposes him, and he falls before his time. Now look at another man who conceals his ambition, who bides his time quietly, enduring insults, disguising his hunger. And then, when opportunity opens, when his rival is distracted, when the moment is ripe, he moves with speed, striking so suddenly that no one can resist. Both men had ambition, both had strength, but only the one who mastered timing achieved victory. In the affairs of men, fortune is like a river. It floods without warning, sweeping away those who were unprepared. But to the man who has built channels, who has studied its patterns, fortune becomes his servant. Timing is the art of reading fortune, of knowing when the flood is coming and when the waters will recede. The fool fights against the river. The wise man waits, positions himself, and lets the river carry him forward. Consider how opportunities appear in life. They do not knock twice. They come disguised, often in silence, and they vanish quickly. The man who hesitates in fear, waiting for certainty, finds only loss. And yet, rushing blindly is no less dangerous. To seize every chance without judgment is to exhaust oneself, scattering strength on empty pursuits. The path to power requires a balanced patience until the opening reveals itself, and speed the moment it does. The delay is the preparation. The strike is the victory. This truth is as relevant in the marketplace as it was on the battlefield. The businessman who launches an idea before the world is ready wastes his treasure, no matter how brilliant the idea may be. The politician who reveals his hand too soon loses the element of surprise. The warrior who attacks before his men are positioned ensures his own defeat. But when timing is mastered, even the weak can defeat the strong. For a small force, striking at the precise moment can topple an empire unprepared. The key lies in watching closely, listening deeply, and restraining the impulse to act without advantage. Men reveal themselves not only in what they say, but in when they move. Your rival who grows impatient will act before he is ready. Let him. Your ally who rushes will expose his weakness. Let him. But you must not follow their example. You must learn to read the moment as a sailor reads the wind. Too early, the sail hangs limp. Too late, the storm tears it apart. Only at the right moment does the ship move swiftly forward. Those who understand timing create the illusion of luck. The crowd calls them fortunate, as if fortune itself chose them. But what they do not see is the waiting, the silence, the years of preparation hidden beneath that sudden move. The strike that appears effortless is the result of endless patience. The victory that looks like chance is the fruit of careful observation. Luck belongs to those who know how to wait, and power belongs to those who know when to act. Even silence itself can be a weapon of timing. To remain quiet when others shout, to withdraw when others push forward, to smile when others expect anger. These are not signs of weakness, but of control. Silence builds tension, and tension builds fear. Then, when your words finally come, they carry the weight of thunder. Thus, timing transforms even the smallest action into a decisive blow. In the game of power, timing is the edge of victory. The world does not reward the one who moves first, nor the one who moves last. It rewards the one who moves at the precise moment when the opponent is weakest, when fortune tilts the scales, when hesitation will mean death and action will mean triumph. To know this moment is to hold the keys of destiny in your hands. Power, when it is too visible, breeds resistance. Men fear what they cannot match, and fear, when left unchecked, turns into hatred. To wield power openly is to invite rivals to unite against you, to awaken envy in allies, and to stir suspicion in every eye that watches. But to conceal power while showing only charm is to disarm your enemies before the battle begins. Men love those who please them, and they lower their guard before those who smile. Thus, the wise conceal the sword beneath the cloak of gentleness, waiting for the moment when the blade must be revealed. Consider the fox and the lion. The lion rules through brute strength, but every hunter seeks its head. Every spear is pointed at its chest. The fox, however, survives because it conceals its cunning. Men admire its cleverness, laugh at its play, but do not see the sharpness of its teeth until it bites. To survive, and to conquer in a world filled with suspicion, you must learn the fox's art. Appear harmless while you prepare for dominance. The greatest leaders in history understood this. They appeared approachable, generous, even weak at times, so that their rivals underestimated them. Caesar charmed Rome with his humility, speaking as if he were a servant of the people, while in secret he dismantled the republic to crown himself master. Kings have poured wine with their subjects, laughed as if they were equals, but behind those smiles they sharpened their knives. This deception is not betrayal, it is survival. For if power is seen too clearly, it provokes attack. But if charm is displayed instead, men willingly hand you their loyalty, never suspecting that they have surrendered their will. Charm is not mere flattery or false kindness, it is a weapon as sharp as any blade. It is the art of making men feel seen, valued, and admired, even when you see nothing of worth in them. When you smile at a rival, you confuse him. When you praise a fool, you make him your servant. When you treat the ambitious as if they are already powerful, they attach themselves to you, believing you are their ally, not their master. And while they are drunk with your charm, your true strength remains hidden, untouched, and secure. The danger of showing power openly is not only in provoking resistance, but also in exposing your hand too soon. The man who reveals all his weapons teaches others how to defeat him. The man who keeps them hidden creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is the mother of fear. A concealed power is far more dangerous than a visible one, because men fight against what they know, but they hesitate before what they cannot measure. By hiding your strength, you force others to guess, to wonder, to fear the unknown. At the same time, charm ensures they do not see you as a threat. Imagine a wolf that dresses in the skin of a sheep, walking among the herd. The shepherd relaxes, the sheep are calm, and when the wolf finally bares its teeth, it is already too late. This is the essence of strategy, to lull men into comfort while preparing their downfall. Those who roar too loudly at the start are silenced before they can strike. Those who laugh, flatter, and smile are invited deeper into the circle until no one can resist them. In the modern world, this principle is no less true. The man in business who displays arrogance and raw ambition becomes the target of every competitor. But the one who appears cooperative, friendly, and harmless is welcomed into circles of power, trusted with secrets, and allowed to grow unnoticed. By the time his rivals recognize his strength, He is already too entrenched to be removed. The politician who shows his hunger for power too openly is feared and opposed. But the one who speaks of unity, of compassion, of common good, while privately maneuvering for dominance, will be lifted by the very people he plans to rule. Charm allows you to gather allies, and hidden power ensures that when the moment arrives, you can act without resistance. Appear to listen more than you speak, appear to give more than you take, appear to serve even when you are planning to command. Men will love you for your charm, and they will not see the power you withhold. They will mistake your restraint for weakness, not realizing that the silence of a predator is the prelude to the kill. To show power is to invite challenge. To hide it is to ensure survival, but to cover it with charm is to transform survival into triumph, for you do not simply endure. You are embraced, trusted, even adored, by those who should be your enemies. They will hand you the keys to their hearts, believing you harmless, and only when the gates are open will they realize that charm was the mask, and power was always waiting in the shadows. Every man believes himself to be strong, yet every man carries within him a hidden fracture. Some disguise it with pride, others with silence, others with laughter, but the crack is always there. It may be greed that blinds him, vanity that intoxicates him, fear that chains him, or desire that consumes him. To the ordinary eye, these weaknesses remain invisible, but to the one who seeks power, they are the keys that unlock control. For no man can resist forever what already rules him from within. The world is filled with men who speak of loyalty, of honor, of independence. Yet scratch the surface of their words, and you will find the thread that pulls their entire being. The ambitious man who pretends to be modest burns for recognition. The wealthy man who claims to be content still hungers for more. The proud man who acts unshakable is terrified of humiliation. These weaknesses are not flaws to be ignored. They are opportunities, and he who learns to see them holds an advantage greater than armies or fortune. Think of how rulers have bent nations to their will. They did not always conquer by force. They conquered by studying the weaknesses of men and using them like tools. The minister who longed for glory was promised a statue in his honor, and so he betrayed his king. The general who feared disgrace was manipulated into fighting battles he could not win. The merchant whose greed outgrew his caution signed away his fortune for promises of greater gain. Each man thought he was acting freely, but he was nothing more than a puppet dancing on the string of his own weakness. The skill lies in observation. Most men do not guard their flaws because they believe them invisible. They reveal them in their speech, in their gestures, in their silences. The man who cannot stop boasting has already confessed his hunger for validation. The man who avoids every risk has already admitted his fear. The one who flatters too much is already announcing his insecurity. To rule others, you must listen more than you speak, watch more than you act. Their weakness will show itself, and when it does, you must be ready to seize it. But understand this: exploitation is not always cruelty. It is strategy. To appeal to a man's weakness is to guide him where you wish him to go. If a rival is greedy, offer him what he desires while you prepare to take what you truly seek. If an ally is vain, praise him, let him believe he shines brighter than you, and he will follow willingly. If a foe is ruled by fear, show him shadows and he will retreat before the fight begins. You do not need to destroy a man outright, you only need to use his own weight against him. History remembers not only kings, but conquerors of the mind. The clever ruler bends others without them realizing it. He makes them believe they are acting on their own, when in truth, their weakness is the leash around their neck. This is why power is rarely taken by force alone. Force can win battles, but weakness wins men. Even in the modern world, this law remains unchanged. The employer who understands the vanity of his workers controls them with titles and recognition. The politician who understands the fears of the people wins their loyalty by promising safety. The merchant who knows the greed of the buyer profits by offering the illusion of gain. Behind every system of power lies the same principle. Men are not ruled by truth, but by the weaknesses they carry. You must learn not only to see weakness, but to conceal your discovery. Never expose it directly, for men grow defensive when they feel revealed. Instead, feed it subtly, encourage it, let it grow until it consumes them. The man who craves admiration will cling to you if you give it in measured doses. The one who fears loss will submit to you if you present yourself as his only protection. Weakness is the doorway, but patience is the key. Strike too quickly and he resists. Strike slowly and he believes he has walked willingly into your hand. To exploit weakness is not merely to dominate others. It is to survive in a world where men are forever trying to exploit you. If you do not see the cracks in others, they will see yours. If you do not learn to pull the strings, you will find yourself dancing to the tune of another. This is the harsh law of human nature. Power does not belong to the strongest, but to the one who understands where others are weak. In every path to power, men are told that relationships are everything. They are told to build trust, to form alliances, to depend on friends and partners for strength. Yet this is the illusion that destroys more rulers than armies ever could. For friendships shift like the wind, alliances crumble when tested, and loyalty lasts only as long as it serves the interests of the one who gives it. To depend on another is to place your fate in hands that are not your own. The wise man builds relationships, but never depends on them. He uses them as tools, not as foundations. Look through history, and you will see this truth repeated endlessly. Kings have been betrayed by their most trusted advisors, generals murdered by their closest allies, leaders overthrown by the very people they raised up. What failed them was not strength or intelligence, but dependence. They gave others the power to hold their destiny, and when those men turned, the downfall was swift. The man who ties himself too tightly to friends or allies does not realize he has tied himself to a rope that can also hang him. This does not mean one should isolate oneself, for isolation breeds weakness as well. A ruler with no allies stands surrounded by enemies. A man with no connections is ignored by the world. But the secret is balance, to control relationships without ever being controlled by them. Build them, nurture them, but always remain the master of the bond, never the servant. Give loyalty in appearance, but in substance, keep your independence. Relationships are best understood as levers. Each man has his own desires, fears, and ambitions. If you can discover them, you can move him in the direction you wish. One ally craves recognition. Give him praise, and he becomes your instrument. Another desires wealth. Reward him with gold, and he will bend to your will. A third is ruled by fear. Offer him protection, and he will follow you blindly. In this way, you do not depend on him, he depends on you. And the moment he depends on you, the relationship is no longer equal. It is power. Dependence is the chain that makes men weak. If your plans require the loyalty of others, you have already surrendered control. For loyalty changes with circumstances, and when the winds shift, men will abandon you without hesitation. Today they praise you, tomorrow they betray you, not because they hate you, but because their interest has moved elsewhere. To rely on them is to build your castle on sand. But if you ensure they rely on you, then they are the ones standing on unstable ground, and you are the one who decides whether they rise or fall. Even in the simplest affairs of life, you will see this law in action. The worker who depends entirely on his employer is at the mercy of his master. The employer who makes himself dependent on one worker risks ruin when that worker leaves. But the man who positions himself so that others need him more than he needs them holds the advantage. This is as true in families, friendships, and politics as it is in business. To be indispensable is to be untouchable. The art lies in disguising control as cooperation. Men do not like to feel dominated, but they are content to be guided if they believe it is their choice. Allow them to think they are leading, when in truth they are following the path you set. Let them feel secure. Let them believe the relationship is equal, even superior, while you quietly tighten the strings. The puppet that thinks itself free will dance forever. Beware, above all, of giving another man power over your needs. If he can feed your ambition, he can starve it. If he can soothe your loneliness, he can deepen it. If he can open the door to your success, he can close it as well. Never place your survival in another's hands, for once you do, you are no longer your own master. Even in love, even in friendship, this rule holds. Trust only to the extent that it does not make you vulnerable. Give only to the extent that it does not make you dependent. Keep always a part of yourself beyond the reach of others, untouchable and independent. Men speak endlessly of loyalty, of bonds that cannot be broken. But these are words that crumble under pressure. When fortune changes, when profit or danger appear, loyalty shifts with it. The wise man does not curse this truth, he uses it. He shapes relationships so that when men act in their own interest, they are also acting in his. This is the highest form of control, when others serve you not because they wish to, but because they must, for their survival is tied to yours. Power is never secure unless it is surrounded by the armor of fear and the crown of respect. Many rulers have tried to rely on love, believing that the affection of the people, of allies, or of followers will protect them in times of trial. But love is a weak defense, for it is fickle, conditional, and fleeting. A man may love you today when the sun is shining, yet tomorrow, when fortune darkens, that same man will abandon you without hesitation. Fear, however, endures. Respect, when tied to fear, binds men more securely than chains of iron. Do not mistake this principle. To inspire fear does not mean to become cruel without measure, nor to breed hatred. Hatred is dangerous, for it sharpens the knife of revenge and feeds rebellion in silence. A hated man is a marked man. His fall is only a matter of time. But the man who commands fear without breeding hatred achieves true power. He is respected, obeyed, and rarely challenged, for men calculate the price of opposition and decide it is too high. The distinction is subtle but vital. Fear is born from power, the power to punish, the power to withdraw favor, the power to bring ruin. Hatred, however, is born from excess. The abuse of power, the unnecessary cruelty, the insult that lingers in a man's heart. The wise ruler punishes with purpose, not with passion. He strikes swiftly, but not constantly. He is firm, but not petty. He ensures his actions are remembered with respect, not seared with bitterness. Consider the rulers who sought to be loved above all else. Their downfall was always the same when hard times came. Those who once praised them turned their backs. They confused affection with loyalty. Affection costs nothing, loyalty demands sacrifice. And no man sacrifices for love alone. But when a ruler inspires respect through fear, men remain loyal because they must. Their own survival depends on it. Respect is the balance that tempers fear. Without respect, fear becomes terror, and terror breeds hatred. Men will tolerate a firm master. They will not tolerate a tyrant who humiliates them without cause. Therefore, you must always act with a certain dignity, never descending into petty cruelty or needless insults. Strike when it serves your purpose, but never to indulge anger. Punish when it reinforces authority, but not when it reveals weakness. To punish out of emotion is to lose control. To punish out of calculation is to display mastery. Even in your private life, the same law applies. Among friends, colleagues, and rivals, you must always demand respect. Do not allow familiarity to erode authority. Men respect boundaries, and they respect the man who enforces them. If you allow them to treat you lightly, they will not fear you, and without fear, respect withers. Yet do not humiliate them, for humiliation breeds resentment, and resentment is the seed of hatred. Be the one who cannot be dismissed, cannot be mocked, cannot be taken for granted. This is how fear and respect grow together. History's greatest rulers understood this. They were feared because men knew the cost of betrayal, but they were respected because their power was exercised with precision. Their punishments were remembered, but also accepted, for they were seen as necessary. They did not act from weakness, but from strength. Their presence alone demanded attention, their silence carried weight, their words bound men more tightly than contracts. They understood that love is optional, but fear and respect are compulsory. When you apply this rule in modern life, you must understand its subtlety. In the workplace, in leadership, even in personal dealings, do not strive to be loved. The loved man is easily manipulated. Strive instead to command respect, backed by a quiet sense of fear. This does not mean open threats. It means the unspoken awareness that crossing you carries consequences. The colleague who knows you cannot be taken advantage of, the rival who senses you will retaliate if provoked, the follower who understands that loyalty is rewarded but betrayal is punished. These are men who will not betray you lightly. But again, beware of crossing the line into hatred. If your punishment seems unjust, if your actions humiliate rather than correct, men will begin to hate you. Hatred corrodes power from within. It turns silence into conspiracy, obedience into rebellion. The feared and respected man is obeyed even when absent. The hated man is undermined even when present. The art is therefore this: let men fear your power, but not your nature. Let them respect your strength, but not despise your hand. Give them reason to believe that your punishments are just, your authority deserved, your decisions necessary. When they obey out of both fear and respect, they will not merely serve. They will protect your rule, for your fall would also mean their own ruin. Power is never secure unless it is surrounded by the armor of fear and the crown of respect. Many rulers have tried to rely on love, believing that the affection of the people, of allies, or of followers will protect them in times of trial. But love is a weak defense, for it is fickle, conditional, and fleeting. A man may love you today when the sun is shining, yet tomorrow, when fortune darkens, that same man will abandon you without hesitation. Fear, however, endures. Respect, when tied to fear, binds men more securely than chains of iron. Do not mistake this principle. To inspire fear does not mean to become cruel without measure, nor to breed hatred. Hatred is dangerous, for it sharpens the knife of revenge and feeds rebellion in silence. A hated man is a marked man. His fall is only a matter of time, but the man who commands fear without breeding hatred achieves true power. He is respected, obeyed, and rarely challenged, for men calculate the price of opposition and decide it is too high. The distinction is subtle but vital. Fear is born from power, the power to punish, the power to withdraw favor, the power to bring ruin. Hatred, however, is born from excess. The abuse of power, the unnecessary cruelty, the insult that lingers in a man's heart. The wise ruler punishes with purpose, not with passion. He strikes swiftly, but not constantly. He is firm, but not petty. He ensures his actions are remembered with respect, not seared with bitterness. Consider the rulers who sought to be loved above all else. Their downfall was always the same. When hard times came, those who once praised them turned their backs. They confused affection with loyalty. Affection costs nothing, loyalty demands sacrifice, and no man sacrifices for love alone. But when a ruler inspires respect through fear, men remain loyal because they must. Their own survival depends on it. Respect is the balance that tempers fear. Without respect, fear becomes terror, and terror breeds hatred. Men will tolerate a firm master, they will not tolerate a tyrant who humiliates them without cause. Therefore, you must always act with a certain dignity, never descending into petty cruelty or needless insults. Strike when it serves your purpose, but never to indulge anger. Punish when it reinforces authority, but not when it reveals weakness. To punish out of emotion is to lose control. To punish out of calculation is to display mastery. Even in your private life, the same law applies. Among friends, colleagues, and rivals, you must always demand respect. Do not allow familiarity to erode authority. Men respect boundaries, and they respect the man who enforces them. If you allow them to treat you lightly, they will not fear you, and without fear, respect withers. Yet do not humiliate them, for humiliation breeds resentment, and resentment is the seed of hatred. Be the one who cannot be dismissed, cannot be mocked, cannot be taken for granted. This is how fear and respect grow together. History's greatest rulers understood this. They were feared because men knew the cost of betrayal, but they were respected because their power was exercised with precision. Their punishments were remembered, but also accepted, for they were seen as necessary. They did not act from weakness, but from strength. Their presence alone demanded attention, their silence carried weight, their words bound men more tightly than contracts. They understood that love is optional, but fear and respect are compulsory. When you apply this rule in modern life, you must understand its subtlety. In the workplace, in leadership, even in personal dealings, do not strive to be loved. The loved man is easily manipulated. Strive instead to command respect, backed by a quiet sense of fear. This does not mean open threats. It means the unspoken awareness that crossing you carries consequences. The colleague who knows you cannot be taken advantage of. The rival who senses you will retaliate if provoked. The follower who understands that loyalty is rewarded, but betrayal is punished. These are men who will not betray you lightly. But again, beware of crossing the line into hatred. If your punishment seems unjust, if your actions humiliate rather than correct, men will begin to hate you. Hatred corrodes power from within. It turns silence into conspiracy, obedience into rebellion. The feared and respected man is obeyed even when absent. The hated man is undermined even when present. The art is therefore this: let men fear your power, but not your nature. Let them respect your strength, but not despise your hand. Give them reason to believe that your punishments are just, your authority deserved, your decisions necessary. When they obey out of both fear and respect, they will not merely serve. They will protect your rule, for your fall would also mean their own ruin. Men judge by appearances, not by truths. They see what is displayed before their eyes, but they do not search deeper. Therefore, the wise man shows them the mask of virtue while concealing beneath it the hand of ruthlessness. The world craves the image of goodness, morality, and compassion, yet the world is ruled by those willing to abandon such illusions when the moment demands strength. To appear virtuous is to win trust, admiration, and acceptance. To act ruthless is to seize opportunities, crush resistance, and ensure survival. Only the fool reveals his ruthlessness nakedly, for it draws resistance. The wise man hides it behind the veil of virtue, using appearances to disarm those he intends to overcome. Think of this as theater. Every man plays a role in the grand stage of power, but only the clever understand the script. Your face must be serene, your words noble, your posture honorable. You must speak of loyalty, justice, fairness, and integrity. Let men believe you are their ally, their friend, even their protector. Yet, within, your mind must remain cold, calculating, untethered by morality when it hinders gain. When opportunity arises, you must be ready to strike swiftly, even if it betrays the very virtues you proclaimed. Men will forgive ruthlessness if they never expected it. They will resist it if they see it coming. Thus, the mask is your shield. Why is appearance so powerful? Because men are simple. They wish to believe in heroes, in saviors, in leaders who embody ideals greater than themselves. They are comforted by the thought that their ruler, their superior, their ally is virtuous. They do not question deeply, for to question would shatter their illusion. Therefore, they accept the surface and rarely peer into the shadows. In this blindness lies your advantage. Show them what they wish to see, and they will not resist what lies hidden. But to act ruthless is not to act reckless. Ruthlessness is not savagery. It is discipline. It is the ability to set aside sentiment when it conflicts with strategy. It is the willingness to sacrifice one man to save 100. To cut off the branch that threatens the tree, to strike without hesitation when hesitation would destroy you. Ruthlessness is clarity, the clarity to see that mercy, when misplaced, is weakness, and weakness invites attack. Mercy may be shown when it strengthens your image, but never when it endangers your power. Observe how successful men across history mastered this duality. They spoke of virtue, of liberty, of justice, but behind their words they built empires with deception, force, and blood. Their followers admired their nobility, never realizing that what appeared as compassion was often calculation, what appeared as generosity was a trap. They ruled not because they were loved for their goodness, but because they were feared for their resolve, while their goodness was displayed like a polished mask to hide the steel beneath. Even in daily affairs, this law holds. In business, in politics, in social life, those who appear too ruthless are shunned, mistrusted, and resisted. Those who appear too virtuous are taken advantage of, manipulated, and discarded. But the one who can appear virtuous while acting ruthless achieves the perfect balance. He is welcomed by all, trusted by many, underestimated by most, and yet he always wins. Consider this: when you act ruthless without disguise, you create enemies who see you clearly. But when you act ruthless beneath the veil of virtue, you strike before your enemies even realize they are under attack. The blow comes not as expected cruelty, but as a shocking turn of fate, and by the time they recognize the truth, it is already too late. This is the advantage of masks. They conceal the dagger until it is buried deep. To master this law, you must practice control. Control of your tongue, for words reveal intentions. Control of your face, for expressions betray thoughts. Control of your actions, for one careless deed can expose the truth. Present yourself as a man of principle, but let your principles bend when necessity demands. Speak of loyalty, but betray when loyalty endangers your rule. Speak of honesty, but deceive when honesty would weaken you. Speak of kindness, but strike when kindness would destroy you. In this duality lies strength. Men will call you honorable while you maneuver behind the scenes. They will praise your mercy while you eliminate threats in silence. They will see in you what they wish to see, not what you truly are. And as they celebrate your supposed virtue, they will unknowingly submit to the ruthless hand that guides their fate. Power is not held only by swords, wealth, or armies. True power lies in the minds of men, and the surest way to rule the mind is to control what it consumes, what it believes, what it repeats. Information is the invisible chain that binds men more securely than shackles. If you govern what men know, you govern what they think. If you govern what they think, you govern what they do. Men are not seekers of truth, they are seekers of certainty. They hunger for explanations, for narratives, for guidance in the storm of confusion. Few will question deeply, fewer still will test the words they hear. Most will accept what is presented to them, so long as it appears convincing, so long as it relieves them of the burden of doubt. Thus, the one who shapes information shapes reality itself. Understand this clearly: men do not see the world as it is. They see the world as it is told to them. The ruler who masters information can cloak weakness in the appearance of strength, disguise failure as triumph, and make enemies appear as villains while presenting himself as savior. He does not need truth to command obedience. He needs only control over the flow of words and images that reach the minds of the masses. History reveals this in every age. A ruler loses a battle but spreads tales of valor, and his people cheer him as a hero. A general starves his army but blames the famine on the cruelty of his enemies, and his men fight harder. A leader exploits his subjects but clothes his rule in the language of justice, and they kneel willingly. The event matters less than the story told about the event, and the one who writes the story writes destiny. Even in the smallest circles, this law holds. In a family, in a company, among friends, the man who controls the narrative controls the direction. He who explains what happened, why it happened, and what must be done next becomes the authority, regardless of whether his account is true. Truth without control is powerless. Lies with control are stronger than truth. You must therefore learn to master two arts: the art of concealment and the art of revelation. Reveal only what strengthens your position, conceal what weakens it. Give men the illusion of knowledge, but feed them only what serves your design. Allow them to see enough to feel informed, but never enough to see the whole. This balance keeps them both loyal and blind. Men crave stories of morality, of good and evil, of right and wrong. Give them such stories, cast yourself in the light of virtue, and paint your rivals in the shadows of corruption. Men will follow not because they know the truth, but because they believe in the story. Belief is stronger than fact, and when belief takes root, fact becomes irrelevant. In modern times, this law has grown sharper. Information moves faster, wider, and deeper than ever before. Words can reach thousands in moments, images can ignite nations, silence can destroy reputations. The one who seizes this flow, who curates what is seen and what is hidden, wields greater power than kings of old. A single message, repeated with force, can reshape an entire people's understanding. Repetition turns rumor into fact, and fact into faith. But beware of excess. If your manipulation is too visible, men will resist. They must believe they have discovered truth on their own, even if you placed it before them. The clever manipulator hides his hand, allowing others to think they chose freely, when in reality they merely walked the path he lit. A man who feels deceived becomes an enemy. A man who feels enlightened becomes a loyal follower. The difference is not in what you told him, but in how you told it. This is why silence is often as powerful as speech. What is not said shapes belief as much as what is spoken. Omit a detail, and men will invent explanations that favor you. Delay a truth, and men will forget their suspicions. Distract with one story, and they will ignore another. Information is not merely what is told, it is also what is withheld. To master information is to master both voice and silence, presence and absence. Therefore, when you control information, you do not merely control the present. You control memory, reputation, expectation. You make men see you not as you are, but as you choose to be seen. And once their minds have been captured, their actions will follow as though bound by chains they cannot see nor wish to break.